the custody hearing my ex-husband filed to take our kids away from me, his lawyer told the judge, Ms. Reyes is unstable, uncooperative, and alienating the children from their father. He's simply asking the court to protect them. My ex sat there in a pressed suit, the picture of a concerned dad, and my lawyer stood up and said, Your Honor, we'd like to enter 3 years of the father's own text messages into evidence, all 1,100 of them. Let me back up. My name is Marisol Reyes. I'm 39 years old, and for 3 years after my divorce, my ex-husband used our 2 children as instruments to control, punish, and financially drain me, turning a custody agreement, which is supposed to protect kids, into a weapon aimed at their mother. And for 3 years, he did it in writing, because it never once occurred to him that the woman he was tormenting was keeping every message. Let me tell you about Adrian. Adrian was not the kind of abuser who leaves marks. He was the kind who leaves you doubting your own mind. Charming in public, controlling in private, and after our divorce, he discovered the perfect tool for continuing the control the divorce was supposed to end. Our children. Because when you share custody with someone, you're legally bound to them for 18 years, forced to coordinate, communicate, and cooperate. And a person who wants to hurt you can turn every one of those forced interactions into a small knife. Our divorce itself was relatively clean on paper. Joint custody, roughly equal time, a standard arrangement. I thought the hard part was over. I thought we'd co-parent coolly and get on with our separate lives. I did not understand that for Adrian, the divorce wasn't an ending. It was a change of venue. Let me show you how it worked, because the genius of this kind of abuse is that each individual act looks small, reasonable, even defensible, and only the pattern reveals the machine. The scheduling. Our agreement required us to coordinate exchanges and adjustments. Adrian used this to control my entire life. He'd agree to a schedule, then change it at the last minute, forcing me to cancel work, plans, dates. He'd demand I be available for flexibility while offering none. He'd wait until I had something important, a work trip, an event, and suddenly become rigidly unavailable to take the kids, or suddenly need me to take them, whichever wrecked my plans more. 3 years of my life, run by a man who used our children's schedule as a remote control for my time. The money, every shared expense became a battle. He'd agree to split something, then refuse to pay his half, knowing I'd cover it rather than let the kids go without. He'd nickel and dime me on everything, file motions over trivial amounts to run up my legal fees, and generally use the fact that fighting him cost money to bleed me slowly. Litigation as punishment. He had more money than me, and he used the courts the way a bigger kid uses his reach in a fight, not a win, but to keep hitting. The children. This was the cruelest part. Adrian used the kids as messengers and as spies. He'd interrogate them about my life, who I was seeing, what I was doing, what I said. He'd make them feel guilty for loving me, subtly punish them for enjoying their time with me, and send them back to me anxious and withdrawn. And he'd tell them things, that I was the reason the family broke, that I didn't really want them. Small poisonous things designed to erode their bond with me while he played the fun, blameless dad. And through all of it, he documented a version of reality in which I was the problem. He'd send me a text picking a fight, and when I responded with anything less than perfect calm, he'd have evidence of my instability. He was building a case against me, I could feel it, constructing a paper narrative of an unstable, uncooperative mother, so that one day he could go to court and take the kids entirely, which was the real goal all along. Not custody, control, winning, erasing me. Here's the thing he never understood. I saw what he was doing, early, and instead of reacting the way he wanted, emotionally, messily, giving him the evidence he was fishing for, I made a decision that saved my children and me. I decided that if Adrian wanted to build a case in writing, I would let him, and I would keep every word. Let me tell you what I did, methodically, for 3 years. First, I moved every possible communication with Adrian to writing, and I stopped responding to him by phone. He hated this, abusers hate a record, but I framed it reasonably. I think it's best we keep our co-parenting communication in text and email, so there's no confusion about what we agreed to. He couldn't object without looking unreasonable. And so, for 3 years, Adrian conducted his entire campaign in text messages, which I saved, backed up, and organized. Second, I responded to every one of his provocations with unfailing, documented calm. This was the hardest discipline of my life. He would send me something cruel, something designed to make me explode, and I would respond with something like, I understand you're frustrated. To confirm, you're saying you can't take the children this weekend as we agreed? I'll make arrangements. Please let me know by Friday if anything changes. Warm, reasonable, cooperative on the record, every single time. Because I understood that the contrast, his cruelty against my calm, in writing, side by side, was the most powerful evidence in the world, and I was building it with every exchange. Third, I documented the pattern beyond the texts. I kept a journal, a factual one, dated of every last-minute schedule change and what it cost me, every unpaid expense, every time the kids came back anxious and what they said. I kept receipts, I kept a calendar. I built a record so complete that the chaos Adrian was creating became, in my hands, a perfectly organized timeline. Fourth, I got the kids help, quietly and properly. I put them in therapy, not to build a case, but because they need it, and because a good child therapist is a mandated reporter and a neutral professional who documents what children say. Over time, the therapist's records reflected what was happening, 2 children being subtly turned against a mother they loved, by a father using them as weapons. I did all of this for 3 years while Adrian believed he was winning. He thought my calm was weakness. He thought my refusal to fight back meant I was breaking down. He escalated, because bullies escalate when they don't get a reaction, and every escalation went into the file. He was, without knowing it, writing my case for me, one cruel text at a time. And then he made his move, the move I'd been waiting 3 years for. Adrian filed for full custody. He decided the groundwork was laid. He filed a petition claiming I was unstable, uncooperative, and alienating the children from him, the exact narrative he'd been constructing, and asking the court to give him primary custody and reduce me to supervised visitation. He walked into it certain he'd win, because in his mind he'd spent 3 years building an airtight case against a broken woman. He had built a case. He just built mine. Let me tell you about the hearing. Adrian arrived in a pressed suit, radiating concerned father energy. His lawyer painted the picture he'd paid for. The unstable mother, the alienated children, the long-suffering dad forced to seek the court's protection. His lawyer told the judge I was unstable, uncooperative, and alienating the children from their father. And my lawyer, a sharp, calm family attorney named Renee Osei, stood up and said, "Your Honor, we'd like to enter 3 years of the father's own text messages into evidence, all 1,100 of them, and we'd like to read a representative sample aloud." I watched Adrian's face. Renee read them. She read his cruelty, and beside each one, my calm, reasonable, cooperative response. She read the text where he canceled a weekend with 20 minutes notice to wreck my work trip, beside my reply arranging to cover it. She read the text where he refused to pay his half of our son's medical bill and dared me to do something about it, beside my reply confirming I'd cover it so our son wouldn't go without. She read the text where he told me I was a terrible mother, that the kids didn't want to be with me, that he'd make sure everyone knew what I really was, beside my replies, unfailingly steady, unfailingly focused on the children. 1,100 messages, 3 years. And in every single exchange, the unstable, uncooperative, alienating mother was the calm one, and the concerned father was the one sending cruelty at midnight. "Your Honor," Renee said, "the father has described a portrait of an unstable mother. We agree the court should look closely at instability." He'd simply ask, "Whose messages are these?" Then she entered the rest. The journal of last-minute changes matched to Adrian's own text confirming them. The record of unpaid expenses matched to his own refusals in writing. And carefully and appropriately, the child therapist's professional observations, a neutral expert, describing 2 children showing the effects of being used as instruments in exactly the way our documentation showed. The judge, a woman who had, I imagine, seen a great many pressed suits and concerned father performances, read the messages for a long time. The courtroom was silent. Adrian's lawyer had stopped whispering to him. Adrian's concerned father face had curdled into something small. Here's how it ended. The judge did not give Adrian custody. She did the opposite. Faced with 3 years of his own documented cruelty, his own written proof that the instability was entirely his, and a neutral therapist's record of the harm he'd done. The judge found that the father had been engaging in a documented pattern of using the children to harass and control their mother. She didn't just deny his petition. She restructured the custody arrangement to protect the kids and me, giving me primary custody. Acquiring Adrian's communications to go through a monitored co-parenting app that flagged exactly the behavior he'd been getting away with, and ordering him into counseling and a co-parenting program as a condition of maintaining his visitation. The man who filed to take my children walked out of court with less access than he'd started with, because he'd spent 3 years handing me the evidence to prove why he should. And the financial weapon broke too. When a judge sees a documented pattern of one parent using litigation to harass the other, it changes how the court views everything. And Renee was able to get Adrian ordered to contribute to my legal fees, on the grounds that his petition was not made in good faith. The strategy of bleeding me through the courts stopped working the moment the court saw it for what it was. But the real victory wasn't the ruling. It was my children. The monitored communication and the new structure took Adrian's weapons away, and without the ability to use the kids as instruments, he slowly lost interest in the fight, which told them, and me, everything about what the fight had really been about. It was never about wanting them more. It was about controlling me, and when the court took that away, his intensity faded, because you can't punish someone through children you can no longer weaponize. My kids are okay now. Better than okay. Anxiety they carried for 3 years eased once the tension eased, once the therapist helped them understand that none of it was their fault, once they got to just be kids with a mother instead of messengers in a war. My daughter told me a year later, "It feels quieter now, Mom." That's the thing I'd fought 3 years for, quiet. Adrian never understood what happened to him, I think. He believed, to the end, that he was the smart one, the one billing the case, the one who'd catch me breaking down and take everything. He never grasped that his whole strategy depended on me reacting the way he wanted, and that the moment I decided to stay calm and keep the receipts instead, every cruelty he sent stopped being a weapon against me and started being a witness against him. He spent 3 years documenting an unstable, uncooperative mother. He just forgot to check, before he got to court, which one of us the documents were actually about. For 3 years I answered his cruelty with the same steady, boring, reasonable calm, and it nearly killed me to do it, and I did it anyway, because I understood something he never did. He was writing a story about who I was. And I was going to make sure that, when the story was finally read out loud, in the one room where it mattered, it would be told entirely in his own words.